TikTok, it's time to rock, ladies and gentlemen. It's the 5150 show, and it's my extreme pleasure to be here talking Van Halen and other bits and pieces with Jimmy. How are you, Jimmy? Good to see you, brother.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I love this show.
Love you, bro. Love you. We got a little bit to talk about. We've got a little bit of stuff to talk about this evening, guys. And I suppose in particular, the first thing we have to do, the first thing we got to do is we've got to do a special shout out to the co-host of the other half of the Jim V and John C show, John Conklin, our brother in arms, our dear brother who is recovering from his operation, Jimmy, and we send him our love and regards.
Yeah, he's I don't know. He's been having a hard time. Like some days are better than others. I check in with them. Les Paul Gibson checks in with them too, and we're like just trying to find out how he is. And like yesterday, he seemed pretty good. And like we were talking about, in the green room, he had a flare up yesterday because of his dog. He thought his dog was going to jump on him or something, and like he flinched and he pulled something, and oh man, it's I feel for the guy, man. It's like he can't breathe. Like it hurts when he breathes. And anyway, he was saying that yesterday was a lot better. So I'm hoping that once he starts getting back on the road to recovery, everything will be all right. It's just that's part of the things that that you really don't think about is like you go and have the operation, and
Sure.
but then like there's the whole recuperation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So shout out to Conklin, man. Love you, bro.
Yeah. And everybody in the chat too. We're confident John is watching, so send some prayers. Keep him in your prayers because he is as Jimmy said, he's a good friend to a lot of us on social media, and some of us are fortunate enough to know him in real life. So just keep him in your thoughts.
Yeah, he was missed at EVH Con. So
speaking of EVH Con, bro, congratulations for everything that you did for the channel when we streamed. My gosh, we streamed about 4 hours, Jimmy.
Yeah,
4 hours live.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it actually worked. Now we know what we need to do. That was like a bit of a dry run, like a test run. But next year we got, like we were talking about, we got other plans, and it'll be a lot smoother and last a lot longer. But this was definitely like the best con. There was so many people. It was probably 50% more than last year. And I'll tell you, like one of the main factors of it being so great, besides the people and everybody that came, is that there's this part where the band, like the band, there's a band there, and you get up and play. It's basically my Van Halen tribute. My buddy, my drummer Kenny, and my singer Mark, and our friend Jeff, who used to be in the band. He's in some other band now. It just worked out because the levels were so good. Sometimes it's way too loud to be in there, right? Because you get the amps cranked, but like it was so good because like people were playing, and like everything could be heard, but you could also talk to the guy next to you. You know what I mean? It was excellent. It was excellent. But yeah, there was a lot of people, a lot of new faces and stuff, and I can't name everybody. I got to meet Keith Campbell and Paulie Walnuts and all that. That was really, really cool. A lot of great people. Louis Costa, my buddy Anthony Costa showed up, was there, who I've been trying to get to come to con for a few years, and it was just a great time. Like I said, there wasn't a lot. It was the volume was great. And because of that, sometimes, well, like a couple of cons ago, it was way too loud, and like you couldn't really talk to anybody. You had to go outside, you know. And it was also a beautiful day. It was like 70 degrees. I couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? Usually around this time here, it's like in the 50s, 40s around here in November, in like
Yeah.
the Northeast. So, but yeah, I mean, if you know, do you have any questions on like how it
Yeah.
went or anything like that that I can answer?
Yeah. There's a couple of things, bro. So obviously, at the start of the video stream that we did, it was fantastic. You know, we had some people watching, and a
Yeah.
lot of people were digging the fact that people were coming in, and I have to tell you, I was a little bit cautious about how it would come across on the live stream beforehand. You know, we discussed that, didn't we, beforehand? We weren't sure. But I got to
Yeah.
tell you, bro, it came across really, really well. And I think the fact that you guys decided to lower the volume
Yes.
to allow the conversation and obviously to come through on some of the transmissions, some of the live streaming, because I've seen a couple of other live streams of snips of the band playing. It came across really, really well, Jim. So the fact that you guys were getting enough volume to play in the shop was good, but also to get the streaming volume worked well. So, you know, top marks for that. But mate, couple of things. Good to see a lot of young people coming in.
Oh
Hey?
yeah. Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah. There was a lot of there was this younger. I didn't get his name, but yeah, there was a lot of younger kids and a lot of younger kids that could play. It was cool.
I've just touched base with him. I found him just before the show, and forgive me, when Jimmy's talking, I'll go and find his name, but he was the young cat that was playing the star guitar with the long hair. Outstanding. In fact, we were watching him warm up. You know, before it started, he was in there and he was playing and stuff like that. And we're going, people in the live stream were going, wow, that guy is just phenomenal. And then obviously when you jumped on, people saying, Jimmy can play.
I made a few mistakes up there, but no, it was good. Yeah.
Not only is he handsome and good looking, he can play.
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Towards the end, they were like, "Aren't you going to play?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." I mean, you know what it was there was a whole thing with like my drummer where he you know, I had cleared this with them weeks in advance, like all my guys, like, hey, you know, November 6th is con. Can you guys make it? You know, if they can't make it, then we try to find like somebody else to fill in, right? But what happened was, so you know, it was all lined up, and like, yeah, you know, everybody's like, okay, yeah, don't worry, I'll be there. And then like we had a show the week before, you know, with my band, and I was like, hey, Kenny, man, you know, don't forget, you know, con next week. Yeah, don't, no problem, blah blah blah. So it was Saturday, right? Like the day before, and I'm like, all right, I'm like, I don't want to feel like I have to baby these guys, but let me just send something to make sure that they know it's tomorrow. Okay. I'm like, and like, I was like, yeah, well, I already cleared this 3 times already. But good thing that I did, because like I sent something like, hey guys, you know, can't wait to see you all. You know, we're gonna have a great time at con tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I'll be there like at 11, this and that. And you know, my singer Mark came back. Yeah, you know, I'll be there. You know, Jeff Jeff plays he used to be in my band. He plays with Everybody Wants Some in Massachusetts now. And so he was, you know, he's in. And this is around noon, and around like 1:30 in the afternoon, my drummer comes back and he's like, you have to understand, my drummer he's such a great guy. Okay. He's always smiling back there, right? He like sometimes I want like sometimes you know he's got kids, and sometimes I'm like, man, I wonder what it would be like having Kenny as a dad, because like
Sure.
he's always like he's smiling and in a good mood. You know what I mean? So I want to say that before I tell you the rest of the story. I love the guy. Okay.
Sure.
So
Sure.
Kenny writes back at like 1:30. He's like, he just like nonchalantly, right? He's like, yeah. He goes, man, I got something to do with my mom. I'll catch you guys next year. And I'm like, what, Kenny? We cleared this with you. These guys are depending on you. You know, like we're supposed to, field a band, and they're dependent on you. And he comes back and he's like, oh, okay, yeah. We ended up kind of like working out a plan, and like he had to be somewhere with his mom. So I'm like, dude, we just need you for like 2 hours. Just play from like 1 to 3 or something, And so it worked out. He showed up and he stopped smiling, had a great time. But that's kind of like what I'm getting at. Like they were like, "Aren't you going to play?" But I wanted other people to play. Like I play all the time. You know what I mean? So I thought like Kenny would have to leave at some point, right? And so I don't want to waste anybody's time, me being up there playing, right? I'd rather have people that don't have the ability to play with a live band and do some Van Halen, right? But so yeah, and that's what I'm talking about earlier, where I'm like, thank God I checked with these guys, because like we'd be there on Sunday, assuming that Kenny, who I cleared this with 3 times prior, is gonna come. You know what I mean? We'd be like, "Where's Kenny?" And then like that day would be like, "Hey, Kenny, where are you?" "Oh, I'm out with my mom. I can't make it." Anyway, so there was there's a little bit of a fire drill. Me and Suma were going back and forth about like what we can do for a plan B, and there really wasn't a lot. That last minute. Like if I knew something, like if he got sick and like he couldn't do it, with a week to go, we could probably maybe find somebody. But it's just so specific. It's not like just going up there and playing party songs,
Sure. Yeah,
because like we pretty much next year is going to be 10 years of us having this band. So in those 10 years, we've pretty much played every Van Halen to almost every David Lee Roth song, right? At least that.
Cool.
And some Sammy Hagar stuff. So that guy, Kenny, he knows all these tunes. Like, they did obscure shit like Girl Gone Bad, and we did House of Pain and stuff like that. But like, so he knows all the obscure stuff, and he knows all the regular stuff like Feel Your Love Tonight or Dance Tonight. So finding somebody that last minute is almost impossible. You know what I mean? So so we had a little bit of an emergency there, but it worked out. It worked out.
Well, you worked it out, bro. Bro, I've just got to do a quick little shout out before we continue the debrief on EVH Con, if that's okay. I want to do a special shout out to Janice Lalo, because she took the stream and she filmed a little bit of the show from her cell phone for us, bro, too, for a while. Yeah. Hi, so thank you so much, Janice, for doing that. And while I'm here, bro, if I can just do a quick shout out to everybody in the chat, and then we'll just start talking stuff. Nelson Rodriguez is in the chat. Thank you, brother. Greg Roberts Tune, thank you for joining us. Keith Van Halen Campbell, good to see you, brother. Jimmy Ray Hawkins, a good friend of the channel. Paulie Walnuts is here. Tim Thomas, another very, very good friend of the channel. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Dan Nanan Comedian. Thank you, Dan. That's a new name. So thank you for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do, Dan. And I think, Jim, that's just about everybody here. And, of course, Janice. And I'm going to go, oh, how can I forget this guy here? Look at that. Mikey Mojo.
Oh, yeah.
Mikey Mojo with the Rasta at EVH Con.
That was cool. That there was a lot of cool guitars, I'll tell you. When I walked in there, Craig Stofko had this. It was and I told him, I'm like, dude, I have a body. You got to paint this up like this. It was a '78 replica, but the white and black. But the white was like what he calls chalk white, like a matte white. So it was just different enough. You know what I mean? When you look, I have some pictures of it on my phone, but I don't think it would come across like on the feed. But looking at it in person, I was like, wow, I'm in love. And like I think it was for a gentleman that was there. I forget his name. He came there to pick it up, and it was just just an amazing color. Just different enough where it was unique. And that Rasta guitar was really cool too. Yeah. But I mean, there was a lot of like 5150s. There was a lot of Frankies. You saw a lot of like the EVH side of these replicas also. We For amps, like we were running, and I think this is why the volume was fine, because before we used to do like a wet dry wet and like two heads or something, three cabs, I don't know. And we just ran it straight into we basically ran a pedal board right into a 5150. And so that was what you heard when the band was playing. And I think when you were talking about the kid that was warming up, he was running through my Kemper. I had a Kemper set up.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was running through my Kemper. I had a Kemper set up there, and which is what I use live. And just to have like people have one or two different amps to like kind of run through. But yeah, it worked out well. The volume was excellent. I mean, it was the best. It was because I call it like sound drunk. Like two years ago, it was so loud. Like you went home and it was like you were almost drunk from how loud it was. It was so loud. I mean, like we spent most of the time outside. It was just so loud. But this one was perfect.
Well, I'm glad, and all credit to you guys to realize that it's a social gathering too.
Yes,
Jimmy. So you have to have that ability to at least have communication and stuff like that. So I just got to do another little shout out. Yesterday I was a guest on Ben Coombs's show, who's a Canadian, and he said that he watched a bit of the stream. And he made this point that you and I and everybody often talks about. He said, wasn't that just crazy that there's this EVH con in Connecticut being screened on the internet from a show based in New Zealand?
I was just talking to my buddy who lives, I've known this guy since I was like 13. And after the show, I'm going to go over and hang out with him. And he was like, so what are you doing today? I go, oh, I got to do this, this podcast. I didn't really want to get into the whole Van Halen thing, but eventually, like, I told him it was a Van Halen thing. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, it's these guys, like the host is in New Zealand. This thing's like crazy. Some of the other guys live in Sydney, like we're here in Connecticut, or, John's in New York. And it's like this whole thing where it's like almost, I guess you would consider international in a sense,
Yeah, it is.
It is
because it is because that's I think sometimes you don't want to sort of what's the word talk too much about the fact that you're involved in something too much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the EVH Con now is an international event.
That's crazy, right? It's so crazy. Yeah, so so I was telling him, I'm like, he goes, this podcast, it's what, for work? I'm like, oh, no. It's like, just a podcast. He's like, I'm like for what? Van Halen? I go, yeah, Van Halen. Actually, it is about Van Halen. He's like, oh, get out of here. I'm like, yeah, these guys are like in, New Zealand and like Australia. And like, there's people, logging in from across America and stuff. And he's a great guy. He understands. He comes and sees my band every once in a while. He's a great dude. And so like, I can, but like sometimes like when where I work, I work for this hedge fund in Stanford, and like they know that I'm in a band and stuff like that. But I kind of try to keep it just, I don't know, like I don't want to talk about it too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
well done too, bro. That you guys did a shout out to Dave Nesdell. Well done. At the Con. That was awesome, bro.
I forgot about that part. There was a raffle, and somebody won a really great Kramer. Do you see that? It was like a blue sparkle Kramer.
Yeah.
And Adam Reaver was there doing like FU tone upgrades in this room. Who I call like the godfather of these replicas, Scott Smith, was there.
Oh.
And I think I've said this story before, where Scott Smith was the very first person I ever talked to on the internet. It's crazy. And now now I know the guy. Like you know what I mean. It's crazy. And Jerry Leica, he wasn't there, but we talked. And we know each other, and all these guys are like the godfathers of this whole replica thing. Scott's collection is insane, and he had a neck. Oh, he brought us a neck. It was I don't know if you guys remember this, right? There's this ad in Guitar World, or Guitar for the Practicing Musician, in like the early, well, probably like the mid 80s, 83, 84, probably around 85, I guess, right? Where it's like this bedroom, and there's these two girls and there's these two guys playing guitar, and in the window, it's so subtle, and the window peeking in is Eddie, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? You know the one I'm talking about?
It's got the Blues Breaker album. It's got a couple of Blues Breaker. Yeah.
Yes.
Famous ad,
That's
bro.
one. It's got the records and like, well, if you look at that ad with Eddie looking in the window, next to him on the inside in the room, right? There's blinds, and there's a neck jammed up in the blinds upside down, and it's striped up like the 5150 in a sense, but not the exact same pattern. Anyway, Scott has that neck, and he was telling us how it was built and painted the same time as the 5150, and it's a great these guys, they all fight over like what color the 5150 is. It looks slightly different in this picture, it looks brighter in this picture, and he was telling us this is what the 5150 looked like when it was relatively new. Now that neck is many years old, but like the 5150, because it was gigged and was on all these stages and around smoke, like you figure the color would be a little bit different than this neck that hasn't been on that. You know what I mean? But it was just, I mean, that's the neck that's been jammed up in the blinds in that ad. Scott Smith has it, which was sick.
How did Scott get that?
He brought it, and we were checking it out. It's incredible.
How did Scott get hold of that?
That's a bit of a story. I can't, because there was a band playing. I don't know the full story. I'll have to defer to Scott how he ended up with that. But Scott has it, and it's insane. Because I remember seeing that ad, when I was a kid, and like I loved it because it's subtle. In the window peeking in is Eddie. You know what I mean? Like a peeping Tom. And then and right next to him on the inside in the room is an upside down hockey stick neck striped up, Kramer. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. There was a lot of cool guitars, a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool dudes, a lot of cool playing. Had some food, had some pizzas and some drinks and stuff. No, nobody spilled anything. Susan brought cake. Susan brought like this Eddie Van Halen, sheet cake or whatever.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Keith Campbell's got an interesting comment there. That headstock is so thin, like 3/4 inch thick, like a template.
Yes. We talked about that. That the headstock itself was thin. Yeah, it was interesting.
So they would have been putting that. Let's just imagine they were putting that for something like visual effects on the body to get sort of some kind of 3D appreciation of what it would be like before they actually built something.
Now I think this was an actual neck that was supposed to. Yeah, it's not. It wasn't like a template in the sense that it wasn't a playable neck. This is a playable neck, right? And so I don't know if it was on anything like Ed had. I mean, look at all those bodies. Like there's that famous picture where a 5150 where there's like 6 or 7 bodies stacked and
I
they're all
know.
striped up differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so maybe like, who knows what was in there in 5150. Guitars. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear, that's my dog barking.
It's
Um
okay.
yeah. So yeah, who knows what Ed had in there, or what guitar that was on, but I don't think it was on anything that we've seen pictures of.
Couple of things I want to talk to you about, bro. Obviously, we want to get a catch up on you and your band and what you've been doing and some plans. But I specifically had you and Jim in my mind over the last 6 hours. Yesterday on the channel, we interviewed a young guy from the UK who hosts a show called the Red Special Podcast.
I saw something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's devoted to Brian May's guitar. Anyway, we're trying to work on something behind the scenes, but Brian May, as you know, is re-releasing a lot of his solo stuff, including Jimmy, or the outtakes associated with his solo stuff.
Yeah.
And so that necessarily, obviously, includes the Starfleet project. So we're going to get that soon.
Oh, you think that's going to be released?
It's going. Yeah, it is. It's guaranteed. It's been confirmed, along with everything else that never got released with it officially, Jimmy. So I remember saying to John, I said, I can tell you off the top of my head, 50 to 100 EVH fans around the world happy to get their hands on something like that. Happy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, probably even more, man. Like, if you, I don't think you can even get it now. I only heard like bits and snippets of it, even back in the day, because I didn't have it, and
Yep.
like you had. It's not like anybody could file share it. In 1983. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you either had to like know somebody that had it or have it yourself. But yeah, I'd love to see that released. Anything, man.
Yeah. Well, same here. Anything, but that Blues Breaker jam that they do, that's phenomenal. That's 100% phenomenal. So, yeah, look, and Keith Campbell was in the stream last night too, and we were doing that, and he was happy too. He was obviously jumping up and down, saying, "Well, look, clearly this is something that Van Halen fans have been talking about for a long, long time, Jimmy. And we've debated that and discussed that on the show. I know that you're like me. We want anything. We want everything. We want the jams. And I think we had Alan on here, and Alan said, well, most of it probably might be just garbage. And, and I'm going, I don't think so. We don't think so.
I would take anything, man.
Me too.
And it's this time. You have to, they have to start releasing this. I mean, look at what like Guns N' Roses did, last week, right? Or 2 weeks ago. They released Use Your Illusions, right?
Yes.
And there's this sick concert that's like 2 hours long that was never released, right? From the Ritz, where they got that footage for You Could Be Mine, right?
Yes.
And it's a full show.
Yes.
Like before they did the Use Your Illusions tour, it was a warm-up show at the Ritz in New York, right? Not to be confused with the first Ritz show that they did in like '88.
Yeah.
But I love Guns N' Roses. But could you imagine something like that being released for Van Halen? Oh my, that's what we want to see. We want to see stuff. They didn't release a new show of them playing last year in like Indonesia or something. They released this show that was 30 years old, 1992.
Jimmy, so here's another point that we made last night on the show too, and we have to thank Neil Young for this. So Neil Young over the last 5 years has been releasing his archives, stuff going back from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, just all the stuff has just been dumped on social media platforms. And the record companies now, Jimmy, are realizing, oh, there's money in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before they just said,
there's money in them, our hills.
Yeah. In the past, I've just been saying, give us 8 songs. But now they realize actually people want to listen to the 30 songs, Jimmy, that were related to that album that came out in 1986, Jimmy.
Yeah. I just I have Apple Music, and the other night they released. I'm not a huge Kiss fan, but I know the history and I know the tunes. They
Yep.
released so the Creatures of the Night thing, and it's like there was demos and like alternate mixes of certain songs, and it's just fantastic stuff, you know. You know, it was just like this. I would love to see something like. I mean, the thing is, first you have to have it. You know, you have to have that stuff available somewhere. You know, either saved. So who knows if stuff like that exists? You know, but you know, for Van Halen. But you know, I was watching that Guns N' Roses concert, and I'm like, man, this would be great if we had something, even like another show from the 5150 tour. You know,
Yeah.
it could be the Hagar stuff.
Yeah.
You know, just release anything. You
Well,
know,
do you remember a couple of years ago, and I went and watched it again recently, where it was dropped, where Eddie is playing, I think in 83, 84. No, sorry, 86, 87. He's playing what went on to be Amsterdam.
Yeah.
You know, and Drop D, and with some cat in the studio, and someone, and and do you remember that? And everybody is just going nuts over that 3-minute clip.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Stuff like that, and like who had that? That's the thing I was telling my buddy. It's like somebody had that all these years and decided to release that now. So like like you can't who has other stuff that we don't even know about, you know, still. There might be stuff out there that we don't even know about. You know, like those there was these videos what was it that so this is love, was it so this is love, where they're
Yeah,
with the dinosaurs outside, you know
yeah.
what I mean? It wasn't a live video or anything like that, but it was a video that nobody had really seen before. You know, that was like
Oh,
2 years ago.
yeah. Well, that's right, bro. And the internet went nuts over that, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, everybody was talking about that. So look, I agree with you. And you know, clearly Keith Campbell. Look at that. Keith Campbell saying there's a wall of stuff in 5150, and you know, as Jimmy said, guys and girls in the chat, you know, the record companies are realizing very, very clearly there's business models, Jimmy. That's the word that we should be. There are other successful business models out there where these throwaways, these remixes, and look, have we discussed this on the show? Look at the Get Back
Yeah.
program that came out about a year ago that showed
Unbelievable.
us. And I
Yeah.
think Keith made a mention about that too. We saw the song actually "Get Back" being constructed, Jimmy, in the studios.
I mean, I feel like any fan of any band, you know, whether you love Van Halen or you love Aerosmith or you love Cyndi Lauper,
Yep.
right? I think a fan of any band would want that for their favorite band. That how incredible. Could you imagine, you know, first of all, it's the Beatles, okay? You love the Beatles.
Yep.
But, you know, extrapolate that. Think about like having that footage of like, I don't know, name an album. Van Halen 2, Women and Children First, whatever. Fair Warning. Them recording some of that stuff. My head would explode. Here, take all my name your price. Take my money. Just take whatever you want. Take my money. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Like, because I listened to Eddie Trunk and they were talking about that, you know, a while back.
What did he say?
He basically said like what I just said, in the sense that like could you imagine that footage for X band, whether it's, you know, like he brought up, I think, Aerosmith, you know, because he loves
Okay.
Aerosmith. But like
Okay.
any fan of any band would, that is like an incredible find, man. So that's what I mean. Like somewhere, I would love to just believe that there is footage like that. It's just not released. But but then my head starts going and like maybe they did have it, but like if you don't maintain some of that stuff, like it might deteriorate and it might not even be worth anything now, because it's 40 years and it wasn't taken care of,
Well,
you know.
let's discuss another business model from a record company perspective and the artist perspective, Jimmy. Giles Martin, the son of George Martin, is remixing and remastering the Beatles albums,
Mhm.
going backwards slowly, and the last one that he did a couple of weeks ago was Revolver. And so they're giving us in that package, you can buy it in different packages. You can just buy the remastered, Jimmy, or you can buy the deluxe editions, which have all the demos, Jimmy, and everything that you're talking about is attached to in a remastered copy. Jimmy, it's a license for printing money, brother.
I know, I know.
Hey.
But here, okay, so here's another thing though, and we've touched on this a few times. Like Eddie Trunk says that they had a Van Halen one, like he went to the studio and heard these tracks. They had a Van Halen one deluxe box
Correct.
set to go. But
Correct.
somebody like different versions of, like, I don't know if it's different versions, but a lot of different content, right?
Mm-hmm.
A Van Halen one. Van Halen one.
Wow.
And like somebody put the kibosh on it. It had to be somebody, in Van Halen. So it's like that stuff. Like what was released the other, like a couple years ago, like a different version of Dance the Night Away. Remember this? This is
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. Like different takes. Like maybe not as plentiful or as common as like what was released on like this Kiss thing, because they had like 3 different mixes of like I Love It Loud. You know what I mean? So, but like it was ready to be packaged up and go. Like they called his buddy. He's got a lot of friends in the industry, obviously, and they went to a studio and they listened to all the tracks. And he talks about it from time to time where it's like, how come this hasn't been released? Could you
Um,
imagine? Like take our money, man.
I,
But
like a lot of us, Jimmy, I've heard that story too, and we've got a couple of experts, Van Halen nuts, here in the chat. What's the reason why, guys? Do you think that was stopped? Chuck in your theories. What's your theory, Jim? What have you heard?
my
Why
my
was it
theory
why was
my
it jammed?
my theory is that those guys don't care about, like those guys, meaning Alex, really, and Eddie when he was alive and stuff. The brothers, they don't care about the past. Okay, like they were focused on new stuff, and like they don't. Alex likes to say, I've heard on different podcasts and read in different books that Alex likes to say, like, would Led Zeppelin do this? But like Led Zeppelin's released their
Jimmy Page,
entire catalog
J-
remixed or whatever, with different, you
Jimmy
know?
Page is working on version 3 of
Yeah,
remixes, bro.
yeah, that's what I mean. So I really, I mean, it's not like it's Irving Azoff, right? It's somebody in Van Halen, and it's got to be Alex. But like, why wouldn't Alex? Like, it's like money. Like, if I wasn't a famous band, I'd release this stuff, especially if it was 50 years on. You know?
Yeah, I, Jimmy, I don't know. And that's why I'm asking you guys in the States. You guys are a little bit closer to the Van Halen epicenter than we are. So, yeah. So Fruitcake
Yeah,
Tony's got
I
a.
think it's got to be somebody in Van Halen. I mean, like, it's not Michael Anthony stopping it. He's
So
all
so
for
fruit.
the fans. You
Well,
know?
Fruitcake Tony's saying that you're right. They just don't care.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They don't care. Yeah, they don't look back on the legacy. And it's a shame, man, because like I'm telling you, like I was watching this Guns N' Roses thing, and I'm like, could you imagine if we had, something from like Fair Warning, or there's a lot of footage that we've got from Diver Down. I don't really look, if you're gonna release some Diver Down stuff, great, but there's like 3 or 4, maybe 5 pro shot videos of Diver Down. Okay, release something from '84 or Fair Warning back.
Okay, I've got a question for you guys, and this is a serious question to you, Jimmy, and to everybody in the chat. So we know that Chris Gill now is tight with Wolfgang. On Chris Gill's channel, there's an interview there. Chris Gill told a couple of people not to talk about the photo, the album cover. Sorry, the photo cover for Guitar World, and we're going to talk about that, Jimmy and I, later on. Do you think, because Chris Gill is a conduit between the fans and that whole legacy, he understands that? He's been on our channel a couple of times, Jimmy. He knows that, brother. He knows it. So I don't want to swear here, but do you think he's going to take that when he goes to do some stuff with Wolfgang and try and say, Wolfgang, go and talk to your Uncle Alex and come on. You guys have to, there's got to be some payback there for the fans, guys.
First of all, I met Chris Gill. It was a pleasure. He was at Con. What an honor. Great guy. Yeah, he could absolutely drop that into Wolfgang's ear. But the thing is that, like, Wolfgang's just gonna pass it on to Al. Al's not gonna do anything, and then no criticism to Wolf. He's got his own career, right?
Okay.
So he's out doing his own thing, which he should be. That's kind of like what Eddie wants. And that's what Eddie wants. He wants Wolfgang not to play Van Halen. He wants Wolfgang to play his own stuff, right? So so Wolf's focused on all that stuff, and maybe, I don't know, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, he might get around to but look, 20 years from now, I'm gonna be freaking 75, man.
Mate, I don't know if I'll be around then,
Yeah,
bro.
That's what I mean. It's not a great position to be in, being a Van Halen fan. Like, I'm envious of these other bands, man, that care about, I don't want to say that, like Van Halen, they don't care about their fans. Yeah, they kind of do, but it's like it's not in them to do this stuff. I feel, you know what I mean? It's not in them to do this stuff. And that's Chris can go back to Wolfgang and tell him that. And Wolf can, I think he's even said this in interviews, like it's up to Al. Whether it's in relation to any reunion, not reunion, tribute stuff,
Well, all credit to Sammy Hagar. All credit to Sammy, because he has been touching his fans, through social media, interacting with them, Jimmy, for a long time. In fact, a couple of hours ago, when I was having my morning coffee, I watched the latest video that they dropped with him hanging out with John Mayer and playing Finish What You Started, and talking about that, and I'm going, so not only is Sammy hanging out, with the fans and performing, these songs and his songs for fans, he's taking his position as a musician and a figure in the music industry, and hanging out with other musicians, Jimmy, and just talking about music. It's, all credit to him for that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's Hagar released, he's got the other half stuff. Oh, the other half, or the other, something like that, that Instagram thing. And he releases like these snippets of these videos, and it's like, where's this from? like some of it is like balance error, but it's not any footage that we've seen before, right?
Correct.
They're wearing completely different, outfits and stuff, and it's a different. So it's like, where's this footage coming from? Did they shoot the whole show for this? You know, and even talking about that, like I'm a being a Van Halen fan, I I think I've seen every footage, every video footage that there's been, but like even like I don't know, like last year, 2 years ago, they released something like it
Yeah.
was the last date of the Balance tour, like in I don't know, somewhere in California,
Yeah.
right? And like that wasn't around 3 years ago. So
No.
there's this footage that somebody has, and I'm hoping that maybe we don't need to wait for Al to release this stuff. Maybe if somebody else has it and it's their property, they can release it. You know what I mean? But it'd have to be somebody like maybe somebody that owned an arena that has this footage because like everybody that went through like Largo, Maryland had to sign
Yeah.
something because they were almost all these like old concerts, whether it's Fleetwood Mac or
Yeah.
Tom Petty there or Van Halen, there's like this Largo, Maryland footage,
I've got another question for you guys and for you, Jimmy. Hi, R2, R3, Locking Nut. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for jumping on. I don't think I've asked you this question. So, in Noel Monk's book, they talk about, he talks about how during the early years, they would have security and they would grab the video cameras and they would grab the cameras off people when they were trying to film and photograph Van Halen and the concerts, because, back then there was, a no filming, no recording policy. Any of that stuff, Jimmy, did any of that stuff survive or did it all go in the bin, bro?
Well, yeah. That's the question. Like, I mean, some of it survived. I mean, like there's this, like if like Largo, like I was just saying, like that is property of that arena, right? So that's why that stuff's been released. Like, if that was property of Van Halen, it probably wouldn't be released. You know what I mean? And so like maybe there's some footage like that that's been when I was trading these bootlegs and videos and audio like years and years ago, there was, and I think I touched upon this before, there's this rumor that there's this hoarding going on, and there's footage of really rare stuff that people hold on to just to have power to get other really rare stuff that they don't have,
Wow.
and they don't want
Wow.
that released out into the public because then it's not like money, but it is you know a rare item that you could use to get other rare items. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But that's a conspiracy. That's a whole other conspiracy thing. Who knows, right? But I'd like to believe that there is foot. I mean, like I touched on this before. Billy Sheehan has said on numerous podcasts that he has a full pro shot, Eat 'em and Smile tour show. Could you imagine?
I know.
But he can't release it because it's not his property. It's not up to him to release it. He can't release it. He can own it. He's with the band, so he's got a copy, but he can't release it. Could you? I would take something like that. Oh my god. Anyway,
So he can film something like that at home, and if you're lucky enough to go over there and have a barbecue and have a couple of drinks, he might
yes,
show it to you.
yes. I think I listened to this Dave and Dave Unchained podcast. I love those guys. One of the Daves lives around here, and he was at my show a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this. And and that's one of the podcasts where they had Billy Sheehan, and he talked about this. And the Daves were like, "Hey, can we come to your house and like check it out?" Jokingly, right? But I mean, but that goes to show that people might have this stuff, they just can't release it. There might be. It gives you hope in a way that I don't know. Maybe at some point it might be released. You know. but there's a whole other, it's a whole thing. I don't have much confidence in Van Halen themselves, like Van Halen Industries, whatever, releasing stuff. I don't see it. I don't think they, not that they don't care. It's not something they think about, which is a
Yeah,
shame.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
look at
yeah, yeah.
Metallica and what they do. They pretty much film everything and record everything. You know?
Well, it's interesting, Jimmy, that you should say that because I follow, like a lot of us, we follow up and coming bands. Maybe not a lot, but certainly maybe a couple. What's really interesting with a lot of these young bands now, obviously they realize the power of social media and filming things. So they film themselves now when they're rehearsing. Jimmy, they film themselves now when they're recording. Now these are no-name bands. These are just bands that are
Mhm.
just hoping to break through into the industry. And we've got Adam here in the chat, very good friend of the channel, and he interviews a lot of musicians too around the world, so he knows exactly what we're saying. So they're filming themselves, and and obviously their tours. So when they do, Jimmy, when they do make it, when they do become successful, then they've got another whole revenue stream there, a whole history that they can present to their artists, sorry, to their fans, and say, well, this is what Jimmy V was doing 5 years ago. Smart, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, even no name people, like like my band and stuff. Like we'll set up two GoPros and like mix that stuff. The thing is that back then, like nobody had that technology. Like video was expensive. That's
Sure,
the that's the
sure.
excuse. Not well. That's
Yeah.
not the excuse. That's the reason why you know people talk about that the Holy Grail Oakland '81. And I don't think the whole show was shot. I think it was just those three songs because it was expensive, you know. And they weren't quite, I mean, they were Van Halen, but they weren't Van Halen like 1984 era where they could throw money around and stuff like that. I don't know. But if that's the thing. It's like if we had like imagine the footage that even just the fan shot stuff. If there were cell phones in '84 or '86, you know.
I think you raise a good point. You raise a very good point. And let's just remember this, ladies and gentlemen, in connection to what Jimmy just said. So, Oakland, and then you look at Bon Jovi with New Jersey and Bad Medicine. So, we're only talking about a handful of years, a clutch full of years, where they went from video being really, really expensive to filming Bad Medicine, and they were giving out hand recorders to lots of people in the audience while they were filming it, and they were splicing all the video together. So it went from something really, really expensive, Jimmy, to something economical and affordable
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I follow some guys on YouTube that I like how they shoot videos. Like it's steady, and they know how to film. And like sometimes it's better. Sometimes if it's well shot, an audience shot video is better than pro shot if you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Cold. Basically, what that means is just holding the camera steady. Your
Okay.
camera steady. But like that stuff didn't exist, man. I mean, if I had a cell phone, like I saw them front row in Groton on the Right Here Right Now tour. Like, if I had a cam if I mean I had a camera, I have some pictures, but if I had an actual video camera, forget it,
Okay.
and that's the thing. It's just that we just don't have that luxury. Whereas
Oh,
today,
awesome. Hey, Jimmy, I just got to say something. Greg, Roberts, Tune, and Keith Campbell, you guys are cool. It's fine. It's just we're all cool here in this chat. Everyone is cool. It's just miscommunication. That's all. We really, really appreciate everything that you guys do. There's no issues, and I know that you guys don't have any issues. It's just a little bit of miscommunication. So we'll just put up with whatever's happening in the background of the streams, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll just keep talking. And but we do love everybody here.
Yeah,
I hope everyone gets it. I hope everyone gets it. We just want to be a cool place. Thank you.
Like Ringo says, peace and love. Peace and love.
But we mean that seriously. You know, Greg, we do appreciate you joining us, and obviously Keith Campbell, our brother. So it's just some miscommunication. That's all. You guys are cool. But getting back to that point that you were making, Jimmy. If you want to continue that, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that, you know, we're in the middle of, you know, we didn't have cell phones back then. It's just something we got to live with. You know, it's that video, that fan footage doesn't exist, so we have to rely on anything that was professionally done. And you know, there's some footage, like I said, there's a lot of footage for Diver Down. There's like 3 or 4 professionally shot shows, and you know, one's in Largo, the other ones are in the South America, you know, Montevideo and Buenos Aires and Caracas, something like that.
Yeah, you know, Jimmy, and what I'd like to see, you know, if they ever came out with a remastered, reissued album, that they cleaned up that video and included that video either as a digital download or Jimmy, on a DVD that you can buy, you remember, you know, or a Blu-ray. You know, we've still got these, haven't we?
Yeah,
I reckon. In fact, I reckon, men, don't throw your DVDs away, because when there's no streaming service, no cloud in the sky, what are you going to watch?
Got to have those DVDs. Yeah, man. I know.
But well, you know, I think you and I discussed this one other time. The same thing too with OU812, you know, that Japanese tour, that Japanese Tokyo gig, you know, clean that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, that stuff's you know, that would be great. But I want some new stuff. There's got to be something, right? But then again, like I said, you fall into, like we said, you fall into that whole thing is like, does anybody care or want to release this stuff? You know? It's disappointing. It's disappointing. But you know, every once in a while, like that, like you were saying, that Amsterdam thing, and every once in a while, like some 3-minute video sneaks by. Who's to know what, like, you know, we might see 3 months from now, you know?
What year did Eddie play the star guitar, guys? R2, R3, Locking Nut is asking that question.
1980.
1980. I was going to say 81, but I'm glad I didn't jump in there. Jimmy says 1980. We got a couple of Van Halen nuts in here. They're either going to back you up, Jimmy, or contradict you.
That's okay. Who knows? Yeah, but no, I mean, you know, that stuff was on. That guitar was used for women insurance. You know, so that was 1980.
So Mikey's saying 7980. Yep, it was a white Charvel at first with the Del Electro. Okay. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. Here we go. There's always someone in these Van Halen shows.
I'm sure. You know, I'm sure everybody in this chat can do this. Where like you can look at a picture and know what year it is from like what guitar he's playing or what clothes he's wearing. I can probably do it if you just showed me his face, like his hair. I could probably tell you what year it is.
So I'm glad you said that, because again, I last night we were interviewing John from the Red Special podcast. I've already mentioned that, and we were talking about Bohemian Rhapsody, the film, Jimmy. And anyway, the Red Special that John owns was built by a guy called Andy Guyton. And what Andy did for the film is, Jimmy, he made 2 Red Specials, one for the 70s and one for the 80s. Oh. Now, I'm not a Red Special nut, and I wouldn't know the differences.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
but Red Special Nuts and Queen Nuts would, so they wanted to get that right. And Keith made this comment. He said, "Well, look, if it was a film about Peter Green, and there was some guy playing a Les Paul that had a scratch plate on, us as Peter Green fans will say, that's the wrong guitar.
Yeah,
It shouldn't have a scratch. You know. So
cool.
but
I
the
like
average
that.
person, they wouldn't give a shit, Jimmy. But isn't that amazing? Because you know you can tell by the haircut what year the
Yeah.
photo is of Eddie.
Yeah, you can. I can kind of tell like what year it is because of his hair. And that's the other thing with Eddie, man. Eddie had the best hair.
Oh yeah.
He had the best hair. There's this one. It's funny. There's this other rock star that I saw a video of that had the exact same hair, as awesome as Eddie's, and it's not somebody that you guys would think. It was Kevin Cronin. There's this video of them playing, REO Speedwagon, right? There's this video of them playing Roll with the Changes in like
Oh yeah.
81, and he had the same hair as Eddie, the exact same hair. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, yeah, Eddie had the coolest hair, man. He was just the coolest all around. Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, look, we're all going to admit that. We are all going to admit that, Eddie Van Halen was the total package. Rock and roll is about the visual as well. It's not only the listening, the oral thing that we're hearing. Rock and roll, one of the great things about rock and roll is that, Jimmy, the band's got to look cool, bro.
I know. And that's the thing. Like my friends and I, we talked about Van Halen 1, right? And how, it's that iconic album cover, the 4 panels, and you can't even really make out Alex. He's just a red thing, right? Just like
he's a demon.
And Eddie's just holding the 78, forward. Let me see here. Where is that? Like right here. You know what I mean? Forward. Yeah. And you're just like, whoa. And then like the back cover, Dave's doing like the behind the back thing, whatever. But then they have like the first, what they wanted to release of them just in a row, just standing there with like Van Halen over them, and like you would like to think that the music would have spoken for itself anyway. But imagine if that iconic album cover didn't exist. You know what I mean?
Oh, and then you get Dave. Then you get Dave sometimes.
Even more specific. Imagine if you had that album cover. You had the Dave, right? Yeah. You had Dave as he is. You had Alex as he is. You had Michael Anthony as he is. But there's alternate takes of Eddie holding a Les Paul special.
Sure.
Imagine, it was just that iconic guitar. And guitars didn't have graphics back then.
No. None.
That's a thing. And it's just, I'm like, imagine if, Van Halen 1 was released and it wasn't that album cover,
Yeah, and Jimmy, and then you get Italian music shows where they're doing "You Really Got Me," and Dave is wearing those fairy boots.
Oh, yeah. Those feathered boots, or whatever those are, the fuzzy boots. Yeah.
And
it
go,
was just so cool.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord, Dave! That's
man. That there will never ever be. Look at this. There's people listening to us talk about Van Halen. There's all these other shows on Van Halen, and that. It's just they touched people. It's just amazing.
All credit to David Lee Roth, man. He didn't give a shit what anybody thought, bro. He didn't give a, mate. He didn't care. He just went out there and did it.
Yeah. Dave was the ring. Yeah, Dave was. I feel like Dave. You can hear in interviews when the other guys talk about Dave. Dave was the leader of that band up until the time he left, right? And then he left, and then the other guys took over. You know what I mean? So when he came back, he didn't have as much power. Because when you leave a band, and you come back, you don't have the same power as when you left. So, but yeah, and up to 85 or whenever that happened, Dave ran that thing, told him what to wear,
Sure.
it was Dave's idea to have Michael Anthony do that bass solo where he's got like effects going and shit, you know, and running around and all that. So like Dave was the one that came up with all that stuff. So you can't diminish Dave's role, you know.
No, you can't, because show business is exactly what it is, Jimmy. It's show business. If you know, you got to have a show.
And that's the thing. I mean, like, you know, these guys on these other, I wish I remembered like the names on where I saw this exactly, give people full credit. But I was listening to some podcast and they were talking about how like they were in the audience and, you know, they went to a fair, you know, it was Fair Warning. They were seeing that tour as kids or whatever. And like, it was Dave's idea that like, when the lights came on, the first thing you saw was Dave midair doing that jump right at the beginning of the show, you know, and he just knew, and like, you know, Dave had that, you know, you didn't know this back then because you only saw your show. You didn't know what the set list was. You didn't know what they looked like. You didn't know what the stage looked like, right? That's impossible for, you know, people younger than us to, you know, understand that. You didn't know this. You went in there, right? And like Dave had that whole, you know, Dave had the whole thing scripted, man. You know, when Dave forgot the words, he didn't forget no words, man. That was part of the show, you know?
Jimmy, it was 3 years before I saw video of Van Halen after I discovered them. It was 3 years, brother, before
Wow.
so we saw them in photos and pictures and guitar magazines, but I did a show a while ago and we worked it out. It was 3 years before I managed to see Van Halen in. Yeah.
That is just you know, we've talked about this before, and I feel for you guys. You know, like you guys had, you know, we didn't have a lot. You know, I mean, we had what we had. You know, it wasn't a lot. But, you know, back in the day, because there just wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot released. But like you guys had it. I mean, I can't imagine, man. All you had was 5150. I mean, all you had was Live Without a Net. That's it.
Yeah, you know, we saw. I think we saw the video. We saw the video of them miming to gosh, what was the song of Van Halen one? The Kinks song. Gosh,
You really got me.
you really got me. Gosh, yeah. Sorry, I had brain fade there. Yeah, and that really, you know, that was good, but that didn't give that didn't give you, you know, a full appreciation of what was happening until, you know, obviously we got the stuff a little bit later on. Jimmy, I see on social media you're posting advertisements and ads about your band. So, what's your band been up to, bro? And what have you guys got planned ahead? Because we originally, didn't we? We thought maybe we're going to do the show next weekend, but you said, no, I can't, bro. I got some gigs. It has to be either this weekend or the weekend after that weekend. I said, mate, let's get in this weekend. So you know, remind people that you play in a Van Halen tribute band. Tell us what's happening there.
Yeah, definitely. My band's called Halen, and it's funny because like right below me, am I stuck? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, brother.
Good. Okay. Yeah, it's funny because like right below my face says Halen. So yeah, my band's called Halen. We've been doing it for about, you know, next year's gonna be 10 years. We play around Connecticut. We're trying to get out. We're trying to get out and play in other states, and we've gotten some offers. It's just that, you know, it's hard making like the math work on going out of state. You got to have a certain amount of, you know, guarantee to go out there, or else like you would just play in Connecticut. You know what I mean? Anyway, so we've got to next year is our busiest year. We usually play like once a month, right? Because you know, around here, Connecticut, it's not the biggest state, it's not the smallest state, but it's towards the smaller end of states, right?
Sure.
So you can't, you know, like if we were in Texas, you could drive, you know, 5 hours and still be in Texas. You know what I mean? But and there's a bigger area, right? But for us, you know, we we usually play like once a month. We probably do about 13 shows a year. Next year we're booked. We've got double that. So that's good. We've got double shows. We're
Wow.
going to be playing like once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks. Um, we do a full night. We'll do our set list. For any given show, will be like 40 songs. So we do all the hits. We do like really obscure stuff. We do on special occasions. We do full albums. We've done Van Halen 1. We've done 84. We kind of like fluctuate between that. At some point, we pretty much know all of Van Halen too. Like I was saying, to fill a full night, because these Van Halen songs, especially the David Lee Roth era, they're only like 3 minutes long. Four, like 3 or 4 minutes long. They're not, like longer, epics. You know what I mean? So in order to fill a full night, just us, there's some other bands that come in from out of state, and they'll play like an hour and a half. That's like an hour and a half. That's my first set. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So we'll do, we'll start at 8. We'll start at like 8 o'clock, and we'll play until 11, 11:30, sometimes midnight. You know what I mean? And we've got like 40 songs on our set list. We've, our whole like song list is like double that, maybe 80 or 90 songs that we've done. This is what I mean. Yeah. It's like, we've done, if you named a Van Halen song, we've probably done it. I think the only ones we haven't done is Sinner's Swing. We haven't really gotten around to that. And, the other weird ones like Sunday Afternoon in the Park that you can't really do.
Sure.
We pretty much have played every Push Comes to Shove. We've done that. Girl Gone Bad. We've done that. I don't know. And name something obscure. Yeah, Secrets. We've done Secrets. So anyway.
Okay.
So we're constantly, learning new stuff. Like I've practiced on Monday. We're working on. We're gonna do right now. And I have a new bass player, so he's got to work up little guitars. So
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we've been doing it for a long time. It hasn't always been the same 4 guys, but this lineup is really strong. I love these guys. This is my last bass player left. We're still friends and all that. Actually, I've got a gig with them. He's going to fill in for a gig on Christmas Eve. On New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
My singer and my drummer have been with me for like I think 4 years now, and everybody gets along. We show up. We had a gig. We had a gig last Friday. I mean, we show up. Everybody's in a great mood. We play some Van Halen. People seem to like it, and we just go home. No drama, really. Nobody's strung out in the parking lot or anything. You know what I mean? We take it seriously in the sense that we want to put on a good show. But we just go there and play our music and go home. Really, don't cause any trouble.
Yeah.
And so it's worked out because we've got relationships with some bars and stuff, and people contact me every once in a while that, hey, we saw you over here. Can my buddy's bar wants to book you or whatever. So I don't know. It's been working out. I guess next year busiest. And we're trying to get out and wander out into. We've got this gig in on Eddie's birthday next year, January 26th, 23. It's in a small theater here in Connecticut, in my hometown, and we're gonna do. That's another one where we're gonna do Van Halen 1 in its entirety. We start the show by doing different songs, and then we take a break and we'll do Van Halen 1. Start to finish, and the plan is to have 3 or 4 cameras because it's a theater with people and lights, like a real light show. These guys are, it's a brand new room, and they've got really impressive sound and lights. So our idea is to film that with multiple cameras and kind of just create some kind of better, I have a package that I send out to people, with videos and our story and all that. But I want to get some better footage where it's spliced different camera angles and all that,
Well, don't forget, bro, if you get anything and you want this channel here that you're part of to take advantage of the connections that we've made, let us know. We'll host any video here on the channel in relationship to your
Oh,
band.
awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and,
It's
and
just, we play all over Connecticut. We've got a gig in, for some reason we do really well. And if anybody's, watching that's in Connecticut, please, first of all, come out and see us.
sure.
Just for the sake of like, I want to meet you, I want to, that's what I tell people. Like at the breaks, right? I've got stickers and I've got guitar picks. In fact, like I had some at con and I had a whole batch of guitar picks and everybody, took them. Thank God, like, they please, I was like, please help yourself to as many as you want. And I create these different guitar picks, like different designs. And what I do is during the breaks, if I see somebody, have like some table or some people out, in the back or whatever, having a great time, I go up to them and talk to them, right? And like, hey, man,
Good.
stick around. Here's some stickers. Here's some, you play guitar. Here's some guitar picks. It's got our
Wow.
Facebook page on there, promote and stuff. And that's kind of like what I mean is like, people are like, that's what I tell people that like, we love Van Halen. And we do this because we love Van Halen, but we also want to meet like other Van Halen fans. And
Correct. Hey, Kurt.
that's kind of like how you
Kurt
grow.
5150. Kurt 5150 is saying g'day.
Hey, Kurt, what's up, man? I saw you.
Um,
I saw some pictures of you and Luis and stuff. That's awesome. Anyway, so yeah, it's we've just been we've got a busy year next year, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with all that.
Hey, well, yeah. So just remember that, bro. If there's anything the channel can do to help promote your band, any up and coming projects you've got, one thing you got to remember: take advantage of social media connections you've got because it doesn't cost you a thing when you use social media. The only thing it might cost you is time. But
what I do, and people have noticed, is that I pay Facebook to sponsor or promote my posters. Like we used to do these invites, right? These like gig invites, and like you'd get like 200 people click going, right? You're like, awesome, man! There's gonna be 200 people, and then like you go there and there's like 3 people.
Oh,
all right,
shit.
yeah. So that happened like that happened years ago. So I stopped doing that, and now I pay Facebook, like I don't know, $50 or whatever. I think you have to pay at least $1 a day for the duration of when your gig is, right? So if your gig's like a month away, you have to pay at least like $31. Okay, but sometimes it's more, right? And what they do is they put your ad. You create like this profile and you'll put in like Van Halen or Metallica or Poison or whatever, and anybody that has those bands or that word, it could be guitars, it could be Fender guitars, it could be Gibson Les Paul or whatever, right?
Yep.
And anybody that has that in their like likes or whatever, in their like interests or whatever, the ad gets targeted there. So people, so it's been working for us where people will come out. And like honestly, like that's the whole point is like your friends, they're gonna come see you every once in a while. But the point is you have to attract people that aren't your friends to come see your band. You know what I mean? And so so that's it's been working. Some gigs are better than others. I'm not gonna lie to you. But we've been, like I said, we've been doing it for about 10 years, and it's that's a testament in and of itself right there, where people are interested. We didn't really, when we first started doing this, I didn't even think that people would even want to do that. I was in this other band before this called Megahertz, and we opened up for like Blue Oyster Cult and some other bands, but we were like an 80s metal band. We we didn't dress up, with like the headbands and all that, but we did, we would do everything from like, I don't know, Old Dio to Def Leppard or whatever. And this band was around for years before I joined it. And one of the reasons why I joined was because I went to see Blue Oyster Cult, and these guys opened up, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, there's this cover band. I wouldn't say tribute band, But there's this cover band that they, I remember they did Dio and they did all this other stuff. I'm like, whoa, right? And when they were we played a gig together, me and my band before that, and them, and they were looking to get rid of their guitar player, and we were doing some Van Halen, we were doing some Ozzy, and they kind of saw me playing and stuff like that, and so I auditioned, I got the gig, and before like my second gig, my second show was I kind of like full circle. It was a couple of years later, and we're at this place, Toad's Place here in New Haven, and we're playing with like Blue Oyster Cult and stuff. That was my second gig, but I was in that band for about 7 years, and and it kind of died out, and a friend of mine had this idea of doing a Van Halen thing, and I didn't really think that anybody would care, and I kind of let it go for about a year. And I tried, my singer left, this megahertz band, and I tried kind of keeping it together with other singers, didn't work out. And then I kind of like toyed around with like doing this Van Halen thing. And first, at first we were like, can we even, do this, And we hit like some benchmarks that I had in my head of songs that we wanted to do. And like, okay, sounds all right. Okay, I think we can do this. And then like we had our first gig and stuff, and then fast forward, we had some personnel changes, people left and stuff like that, and I had to find some other guys. But now we're in like a really comfortable area where we've got all these songs that we all know. We bring in and out songs that if you've got, we're always learning new stuff, and the set is always being updated. There's a standards you got to do, like you're going to do the hits every night, all right, but because you're playing like a full night by yourself, that leaves a lot of room for like deep cuts that fans want to see. I had this one guy at the show saying like, I can't believe like the songs that you guys do. It's like, yeah, you're not going to come see us and hear just Jump in Panama. You're going to see like, I don't know, House of Pain. You're gonna hear, like I said, we used to do Push Comes to Shove. Not so much anymore because my new bass player hasn't learned it yet. But we're always putting in new songs, and we're bringing back songs like we haven't done Women in Love in a while, so we'll put that back in and kind of like change it up. So anyway, that's I think people are tired of hearing me talk about this thing, but it's it's exciting, and I like I said, I love those guys in my band, and if you heard them, that's basically when you guys saw my band, those are those guys that, but besides like whoever was playing guitar at the time, that's my drummer and that's my singer, and that was at EVH Con, so those are those guys, and Jeff used to play bass with us, and we're still friendly and all that, obviously, because he was there. So yeah, that's that's really it. That's pretty much the story of Halen in a sense,
Awesome. I'm just going to put the link to your Halen Facebook group in the chat there for people. There it is there, guys and girls. There it is.
Awesome.
There.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. If you guys, if you're especially if you're in Connecticut, man, come see us, come up and say hi. That's what I tell people. Like, come up and say hi, we want to touch base with people, and we've, like, when we started this, like we've got a whole bunch of new friends. I hate using the term fan. Nobody in a cover band should have a fan.
Sure.
Okay.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying? About those are all your friends. Those are your friends. That you got to keep it in perspective. You're basically in a cover band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we've met all these people that love Van Halen, and they're our friends now. They come out and they come out and support us, and we want to put on a good show and have different shows. Have different set lists, so people don't come out and see the same show like every time, so
cool.
We change it up.
If anybody's watching on replay, I will attach Jimmy's Facebook group to this video, so it'll be in the description if you want to go and subscribe to what Jimmy's doing on Facebook. I'll attach that here, if that makes sense. Jimmy, two things before we cruise, bro, because I'm just mindful of the time. Two things. So So next year for EVH Con, you guys are going to have, I understand, you're going to have like a show and tell stage or section to it. You're going to have, so if people are going to be comfortable doing it, they're going to jump up. Instead of playing their guitars, they're going to take an opportunity to talk about their guitars, who built them, how they built it, etc., etc. That's going to be interesting when you guys do that. So, you know,
That's
we'll,
cool.
we'll be, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll be looking forward to you guys doing that. But I'm gonna put this up, and I suppose we need to talk about. So everybody remembers that iconic photo, magazine cover, 2008, Jimmy. I think that came out.
Yeah. That's about right.
Um,
I have mixed feelings about this picture. I have to be honest.
Share them, please.
This is kind of like tour. First, that this is like 2007, 2008 era Ed, and he was coming out of his dark days around that time, but still not really quite there yet. And I remember, my friends and I, we went and saw them at this casino, Mohegan Sun, on that tour, and I also saw them at Madison Square Garden. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't like 2004 terrible. And let's admit, we can admit that 2004 was pretty terrible.
100%.
Okay. It wasn't that terrible, but Ed wasn't 100%. And it kind of that whole that picture with the hair and stuff, it just brings back memories that like he just wasn't back 1000% yet. And it was a good enough tour, but the funny story is that when they toured for 2012, I probably wasn't going to go see it, and then I saw them do this like friends and family show, and Ed looked great. He was on fire, and like they were playing Connecticut really quick. I think it was like within the first 5 or 6 shows on that 2012 tour, and I ended up getting tickets like the night before and went, and it was a fantastic show. And Ed has been fantastic since 2012.
Yeah.
2007 is a little. I loved it because that was 2007. That was my first time seeing David Lee Roth in the band.
Sure.
So I loved it for that reason. But it was, Ed. It wasn't quite Eddie. He played all right, but there were some rough nights. Like he had trouble with like his hearing. He had this weird monitor. Like he was like placed right next to Al, like halfway through the tour. It was kind of odd, but really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool picture of him and his son. I'm sure he was really super proud.
Well, this got dropped, and everybody who's anybody that's on Van Halen's social media links or is friends with anybody who's a fan of social media of Van Halen would have seen this one that Wolf dropped a couple of days ago. So he's gracing the next issue. I think that's due soon, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Guitar World. So well done. Congratulations, Wolfgang Van Halen, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, Guitar World has, and guitar for the practicing musician, that's hard to say. Those have like super special places in my heart, when I was a kid. That's where we got our news. That's where you basically learn how to play because of those tabs,
Sure.
In a sense. So I've, I mean, down in my basement, I've got stacks of like Guitar Worlds, not just of Eddie. I mean, like years and years, decades of Guitar World magazines, right? And like it's weird, like I can look at a cover, right? You can show me any cover, not so much the later ones because I kind of like fell out of it, 10 years ago or whatever, 15 years ago. But like any cover from like 82 to like I don't know, 1999, and I can tell you like where I was when I saw that, especially the '80s ones. Like I used to, like when I was in college in Boston, I used to go to this place called Tower Records, and it was like this huge, 3 stories building, and like on the second floor they had like the rock stuff and magazines, and like I'd go, this is the '80s, mid '80s, and I couldn't wait for like the new issue. Like one issue you got Satriani, the next issue is Vi, the next issue, oh my God, it's Van Halen, '88 or whatever they just released, OU 812 or whatever,
Yeah.
and so I can, and like it was just I would read those cover to cover. I'll get to my point. My point being that like what an honor, man. What a good, what an honor. Like if Eddie was alive and saw his son on Guitar World, holy shit.
So
That's
so my
cool.
so my question then to you, Jimmy, and everyone else in the chat. So, is there still significance to be on the cover of Guitar World and Guitar Player, and
I think so. I think so. Yeah. I mean, there's still, I think the significance has lulled a little bit, but I mean, not the significance. I feel like just like the wow factor for me,
sure?
right? Of seeing it, because like, now I have it like on my iPad, you know what I mean? But like, I can't stress how important it was to me when I was like, a teenager or in my 20s. You know what I mean?
I dig it,
So
bro. I dig
so
it.
yeah,
I
so I
dig
mean,
it.
especially he's it's a cover. Obviously, he can't be with his dad, but like that cover where it's just him on the cover of Guitar World. I mean, that's if Eddie was alive, man. Hopefully, Eddie can. Hopefully, there's some kind of consciousness, and Eddie can see that. You know.
I think it's an achievement. I think for from a music fan's perspective, the old song used to say, on the cover of the Rolling Stone, I think the cover of Guitar Player definitely is a career achievement for a guitar player to get on there. It's
Oh
gotta
yeah.
be,
I mean,
gotta be.
I think anybody in this chat, like when they were kids, had the dream of like, your own band or your own face being on Guitar World. Come on, you know.
Well, look, everybody else agrees with us. Yeah, Keith's right. It was Wolfgang's fiance who shot the cover. And look at that, Mikey. Mikey's saying absolutely. So who the heck are we to contradict Mikey Mojo?
Mm-mm, mm-mm. Only a fool. I'm not going to contradict. No, it's pretty special. The kid. I'm sure that the kid is very humble. He's gonna downplay it. One other thing that I heard about Wolfgang, I forget where I heard this. Maybe it was like maybe it was in the Chris Gill interview that Eddie Trunk was talking about. But
Oh,
like
yep.
he was saying like he played all these he played these songs for the Taylor Hawkins a tribute. He did On Fire, Hot for Teacher, and what else? I can't remember. Panama, right? And he was saying that like he's like these people people think that like he goes people don't understand like I put a lot of work into that, and I respect that, man. If he put work into that and it shows.
Yeah,
That's what I like saying about tribute bands, like
yeah.
whatever it is, whether it's Van Halen or Aerosmith or I like to joke around Culture Club, right? You have to play that somewhat correctly. You can't just wing shit.
You got to do it, bro.
You have to do your
Absolutely.
homework. So that's what I
Yeah.
tell people. Like I can tell when bands have done their homework because it sounds like the album, right? Now if you're
Jimmy, if you can't do it, play your own shit. If you
yeah,
can't play, yeah, go, and no one's gonna know that you've made mistakes.
yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. And like, like if you're gonna whether you're playing Van Halen or Rick Springfield, play the stuff right. That way I know you did your homework. And I really respect that, man.
Yeah,
You know?
yep,
Other people
yep.
are like, let me just, I got to put in my own. People don't want to hear your own solo for, comfortably numb.
No.
Okay, they want to hear
No.
Comfortably Numb.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Unless I was in your garage and you were having a couple of beers. Well,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
no.
then you're going to say, well, this is But yeah, you're right. If you're in a bar somewhere, if you're in a club, and you've got Pink Floyd tribute band.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, come on.
Especially if you're in a tribute of whatever band. You gotta, because people are there and they know those songs. And like, like if I went and saw a tribute, like this, my band is modeled after like what I wanted to go see. Like if you're a Van Halen fan, you don't want to go see a Van Halen tribute that just does Panama and Jump and I don't know, whatever, right?
Yep.
Half a Teacher, like I want to see people, I want to see songs, and I want to see people do songs that most people don't do, like the
I want
deep,
to see little guitars.
yeah, stuff like that.
Yep.
And like whether that's Van Halen or Metallica or Pink Floyd, you can't, if you're in that thing, if you're in some kind of tribute, there's no, because of that name tribute, unless it's like the Grateful Dead or something, there's no room for improvising.
Right.
You have to play those licks,
Yeah, I dig it. So, ladies and gentlemen, so it's been a pleasure hanging out with Jimmy, and we love Jimmy, and everybody was saying that, bro. Go back if you haven't watched it. Go back and watch the first at least hour of the show, and everyone's going, "Oh my gosh, Jimmy, it's fantastic. It was great." And I know you're a humble, modest man, but go and check it out.
That's so funny.
We want to do a couple of shout outs, obviously, to our very, very dear friend John Conklin,
Yes.
who is recovering. But I'll say it now, ladies and gentlemen. So we're winding up to Christmas. So I suspect the next show that we do, it will be our Christmas show, and so Jimmy will be on here. Our Christmas show will stream for about 6 hours because we're going to have lots of people coming on and jumping on.
Wow.
So we'll have Jimmy on, and we just have to nail that date. Keith Campbell is going to be one of the co-hosts on our Christmas show as well. So hopefully we'll have John Conklin. He'll be fit and healthy, and we'll get him on. If you guys want to be part of the Christmas show, if you guys want to jump on and hang out with us for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, wish everybody Merry Christmas, let me know. Let Jimmy know. Let John know, because we're all in touch. Let the Rock Professor know. Let Brad know.
I've got some people that might want to like jump in, like Craig Stoffco and Les Paul and stuff like that.
Please do, because that was going to be the next shout out that I was going to do. What Craig did as far as elevating, so we couldn't quite see where the laptop was, because people were standing in front of it. So Craig elevated it. He was showing guitars in front of the camera, bro. He was being, man, that guy's got a cheeky smile, man. He's a
classic. Yeah. He's a classic.
If you could get him on, to hang out for 10, 15 minutes with us or half an hour, but that's the plan, ladies and gentlemen. Because as Jimmy just said, he's got a couple of gigs that he's going to do, and the 5150 show, hanging out with Jimmy and John, is always going to be intermittent. It's going to be, not a regular weekly or fortnightly thing, but we enjoy it. We enjoy hanging out. There's no strings attached. But I think, Jimmy, that'll probably be the next show, our Christmas show, bro, and we'll work out a date.
Awesome.
That it won't clash. And
like I was saying, like I was saying earlier, I was telling my buddy I'm going to go hang out with them after, and he was like, "You can talk about Van Halen for like," he's like, "How long is this podcast?" I go, "I don't know. Usually it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I don't know, maybe I'll be done like 6:30. I'll swing by, whatever, 7:30, blah blah blah." He's like, "You can talk about Van Halen for 2 hours?"
Shit, mate, we've done shows where we've spoken about Van Halen for 8 hours.
I know, man. I go. When I first met, because I mentioned him, like when the host is this gentleman Andrew. He's out in New Zealand. Like when I first met Andrew in the green room, I'm like, Andrew, I know you don't know me, man, but don't worry. We're going to talk about. I got a lot to say. Don't worry. Because the worst is like having somebody on here that doesn't really talk. You know what I mean? You gotta like pull stuff out. So anyway, my buddy was like, "You can talk, Van Halen for about 2 hours." I'm like, maybe 22.
Matt, I have to say this because this is what I love, and we're just simple men and women here. Contrast. So again, we had a guy on yesterday talking about one guitar. He can talk for hours about Brian May's single guitar, the Red Special. Us Van Halen fans, we're lucky, Jimmy. We've got shitload. We've got 30 guitars that we can talk about, bro.
Yeah,
not just one.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember seeing, what's that video, like Crazy Little Thing Called Love, where he's playing a Telecaster. It just doesn't look right.
No, it does not.
It just doesn't look right.
Bro, it's been always a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine, man. Pleasure's all mine.
We love hanging out with Jimmy, everybody, and thank you, Greg, Keith, Mikey, Mojo. You guys are awesome. Like I said, if you guys want to jump on our Christmas show, let me know. There's no strings attached. Jump on. Even if you just want to come on and say Merry Christmas, because Christmas is an important time of year. It's an important time. It's good for family and friends and mates to get together. And so Mikey's booked in. Mikey's going to come on.
All right.
Yeah. Mikey, you got it. We just have to nail that date. We'll nail a date and time. And like I said, we'll probably go, Jimmy, to take into three time zones. We'll stream. We did this last year too. We streamed for about 6 or 7 hours.
No, that sounds great.
All right. I'm going to say thank you guys for joining us. I'm going to attach Jimmy's Facebook page to this video if you're watching on replay and you haven't subscribed to him. I'm going to be back in about 6 hours with Brad and the Rock Professor. We're going to rank A Night at the Opera. Looking forward to that, bro. Queen's masterpiece of an album. Thank you. And I'm going to ask Jimmy to say the last words and we're going to cruise.
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank everybody that's tuned in. Thank you for bearing with me and listening to me talk about my stupid band, and that's really what it is. It's, we try to keep everything in perspective. It's just a band, and we have some fun with it, and that's it. So thanks for if like I said, if anybody's in Connecticut or like the general states, come out and see us, man. I'd love to see you guys. Again, like I said, thanks for putting up with some bozo like me. I'm surprised people even tune in for this. So thank you. And it was a pleasure meeting all the people that I met at Con. I mean, it was it's a great community. All shapes and sizes, all different races, religions. Everybody's just really into like the Van Halen, and it's amazing. Like this band has touched so many people and like for so long. That's the thing, really. So, shout out to the Van Halen community, really. You guys are great. Thank you.
All right. We're going to cruise. Bye.
There it is.